We don't need to look to the future to see the ICT revolution or its social consequence. Everything becomes much more efficient. And in that sense, we need fewer hours to produce the goods and the services we consume. And today, we organize it so that fewer and fewer work, and often a lot, too much. And then more and more do not work. They are not welcome in.
What do you see in terms of a new kind of competition when it comes to work opportunities?
I think there's kind of two main sources where we can see the competition coming. First is through the globalization, and the other source is actually through technology. So through globalization, what we can see from Nordic country perspective is that what used to be like closed economies, where you had quite little competition from the other countries, now suddenly from an individual's perspective, what it feels in the job markets is that instead of competing in local or national championships, everyone is participating in the Olympics. I've visited and I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen some of these workplaces yourself.
Yeah.
And there comes a question that is it a good or is it a bad thing that some jobs are being done by machines instead of people? And I tend to believe that it's actually a good thing that we as humanity are able to outsource some of the work also to robots.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good in the sense that it brings efficiency. It gives room for innovation. There's some routine things that we did that actually can be done better, more efficiently, more precisely, and so on. But there is a cost to that in the short term, because if I don't have very high skills, or I'm not really part of that pool, that global pool that is competing at that level, I need work to do, and if a machine is taking it over, I'm at risk. And so the governments are under a lot of pressure to try to address this unemployment issue, which is growing. And unfortunately, many of them are still thinking of job creation as we used to know job creation, which is not working.
The industrial age replaced a lot of labor. Now we're starting to see computers replacing a lot of the intellectual abilities, and it's actually not where you would expect it first on the common level. It's actually the higher level, the doctors, professors, research type areas.
Right, where this knowledge becomes resident in a digital form.
Well, the complexity is large enough that a computer can actually take it to the next level.
So what used to be your bank tellers, your call center workers, your blue collar workers in the factories, so these kinds of jobs are actually disappearing. So the man is losing the race against the machine in those areas. Yeah. And it actually kind of is a big societal challenge, because the tax revenues for the state, or the loss of them when we lose the middle class jobs, is of course bigger. So I mean, there's definitely issues also in the developed markets when it comes to automation and losing these jobs.
I think that the notion we have that jobs are disappearing is sort of very tightly tied up with the notion we have of what a job is. Yes. We believe that a job is essentially something that's bundled socially with a series of benefits and a series of other structures and an identity and all of those different things, right?
And the production factor.
And a production factor. But what we see now is that sort of we do not necessarily produce a lot of jobs, but we produce tons of work. So work, the atom of work, is becoming less and less, it's becoming smaller and smaller. And so there are tons of people out there, there's tons of work out there, and we need to match the two. And that's going to happen. And I think it's significant that we're not even able to capture the value that we're now producing in GDP, for example. Do you know what the value of the Wikipedia is in GDP?
Probably zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's zero, because no money changes hands.
No, exactly.
And it's the product of 100 million hours of work.
Yeah. We see a challenge. I think we need to adjust to it, and we cannot stop the process of globalization. And so one response is sit on the sidelines and complain about it, or look at it as a reality and say, what must we do, what do we need to do? Because people need to work, almost as a human right, you know? People find dignity in work. And if our development and our progress is rendering people useless, then I think we're undoing ourselves as society. I think we need to find ways to address this issue of keeping people engaged, you know, informed, skilled, so that they can be relevant in the emerging economy that we're going into. The answer is not going to be easy, but certainly in the short term it is going to be a bit painful, I think.